evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the planning board meeting. I'd like to ask everyone to rise and salute the flag. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May we have a roll call, please?
Chairperson Kathy, Cleaver.
Yes.
Dickinson.
Here.
Bushian. Here. Kaczowski.
Here.
Fullerton.
Fullerton's excused. He had a tooth extracted today. He called him.
Walperly.
Here.
John Dunn. The mayor's excused. Nick Kapadas.
Here.
Anthony Beatrice.
Here.
William Obert.
Here.
Our solicitor, Dave Rowan.
Here.
And our engineer, John Pettit.
Here.
All right, thank you. Public notice of this meeting pursuant to the Open Public Meeting Act has been given by the clerk in the following manner: posted on the bulletin board in the borough clerk's office, emailed to the retrospect and the courier post. First order of business is the approval of the minutes of the March meeting. Do I have any questions on those minutes? Do I have a motion to accept the minutes of the March meeting? Motion by Mr. Ockley.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Goochen. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, ayes have it. Let's bring up Father Joe. You said you wanted to approach us about some questions.
I'm representing St. Teresa's Regional School, and we found a need to expand our school to include a pre-K-3 program. So we need to bring, we contact guys to receive permission from them to look into it, get a modular unit for the school, near the school, which will be parallel to the present garage and perpendicular to the school. From the zone director mentioned that it was under GO for general offices, and therefore we're non-conforming building that we're using. The use is still for education. Both building the church and the school and so whatever, what cost I might go through that.
Okay, David?
Father, is this a, did you say pre-primer to third grade?
Pre-K-3.
And there's a school there existing already?
Yes.
Isn't there?
Pre-K-4 to 8.
And this is just is it a permanent structure, Father, or is it going to be a temporary?
Well, we're signing a 5-year lease, so we're going to have plumbing and electric equipment, so we're looking at a permanent.
Well, it's a permitted use because it's, you know, it's already a school and a church there, so it's the expansion of the school, which is permitted. I don't know if John would need anything, I mean, if there's something engineering-wise that you would.
I don't think there's anything from an engineering perspective for trailer.
It's going to be the same, not any additional parking or anything. It's just going to be the existing.
We already gave the building inspector the, with the ground frame, to be the pillars and things involved, with the silver long, he already has.
Are the trailers a permitted use though? Is it permitted in that zone? It's just a portable, or what's the, is there any concern there? I don't know that.
We presently have one, on site.
You have one now, currently?
That's the,
Yeah, I don't know, you have to look, I don't know.
Did you get any relief when you put the first one up from the board, or was that?
it was way before my, it's been there for 15 years. It's the township special aid.
Right. I don't think we did, John. This is like my 15th year here. I don't recall anyone from the diocese or from the school ever coming before us in that regard. Why don't we do this, David? Why don't we, you and John just get together and then we'll
take a
send,
look at
and then
it,
we'll send them a letter.
Yeah, and Father, you haven't taken delivery of it yet, have you, or is it there?
Looking at the 1st of July.
All right, so we have
Plenty
plenty
of
of time.
time.
Yeah.
And then we'll put Chris Mecca in the loop. Yes, sir.
Kenny, I serve on the NIAS, or the Archdiocese Real Estate Review Committee, so I don't know
Okay.
if I should.
You wanna recuse yourself? Okay.
I should step aside. Unless you guys are okay with me taking a look at it. You know.
I think,
I don't.
I can't imagine you biasing your opinion.
Okay.
I mean, you know, we've been in you long enough, but you're not gonna bias your opinion on that.
Okay, I just wanted to make
No,
sure.
I appreciate you bringing that to everyone's attention, but why don't we do that? Why don't we just have you and Dave get together with Chris Mecca, and then we'll let Father Joe know if there's any action at all to be taken on your part, or if we'll just be able to have the construction office issue the CO and move forward.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else have any questions for Father Joe about this? Okay, thank you, Father. Good luck with that. Happy Easter to you. All right, under new business, we have an application for a use variance to permit child daycare and religious studies. At this point in time, I am not going to ask Mr. Kapados to step down because I don't know that it's going to be a use variance because we have had discussion with our solicitor and there may not be a use variance required. If such time we determine that there is a use variance required, if Mr. Kapados to step down. But at this point in time, we'll hear the testimony and then we'll take it from there.
Good evening. My name is Michael Daly. I'm an attorney in Westmont, New Jersey. And I represent the applicants who are the owners of the premises. It's leased.
Can you speak into the mic, please?
Sorry. Thank you. I have here the tenant who will, who intends to, wants to operate the facility. And I'll ask him to provide some additional information first, so.
Okay. Sir, would you please raise your right hand?
Yes, sir.
You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board tonight is truthful and accurate to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, sir.
Okay, would you give the board your name, please?
My name is Desmond Wiggins.
And with what business are you affiliated, sir?
I'm actually a pastor of a church and also as well work for Comcast Cable too as well.
And what church are you affiliated with?
The name of the church is called Kingdom Outreach.
Okay. And what is your connection with the building across the street that used to be a law office that is owned by the Lees?
All right, the building across the street, we were looking at using that building for the purposes of childcare. We have a church actually in Audubon, New Jersey, and that building was not sufficient for our needs for what we're trying to do in regards to childcare. Not just childcare, but we're trying to basically be a part of the academy that we're going to be doing from ages 2 to 5. That will be allow children to be able to learn and other things too as well regarding that. So that's what we're looking at doing with that building and also too as well using it as a religious study on Sundays, basically in the morning, just a group of about 20 to 25 people.
And would that be limited to studies as opposed to services with celebrations and that type of thing?
Yes, sir.
And the regular services are going to be held in Audubon?
They still are right now. We use that building, but right now we're looking at using the building there in Runnemede, but it's only a handful of people.
So you won't be having services in Runnemede?
Eventually, but we have just a small group of people. That's the point, just a small group of people.
Will there be any parking requirements for the people that come to the religious studies on Sundays?
Not at all. We have a group, right now in Audubon, it's no smaller than about 7 or 8 cars, so that's about it.
Okay, I don't think I have anything.
So from what hours on Sundays would the religious studies take place?
From around 10 to 11:30.
10 to 11:30?
Yes, sir.
And the operation of the daycare center, what hours would they operate and the days that it would be in operation?
That would be Monday through Friday. And then in the evening times too, as well, we're looking at starting a tutoring program in the evening, but it'll be Monday through Friday as far as the daycare center is concerned.
From about what time in the morning?
We're looking at 6 to 6.
And are you going to be providing bus transportation for the children, or the parents drop them off?
Currently now, it would be the parents, but eventually we will be looking at that avenue if it's necessary.
And have you made application to the Department of Human Services in New Jersey for licensing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Has the building been inspected yet?
By the state, yes, they did come by and look at the building. There was a few things that they needed to basically change in regards to the building, but it's no construction things that need to be done. So it's no construction, they said, it's just little things as far as carpeting and things like that for the children.
And I'm going to presume one of the requirements of the state of New Jersey is when you have to get authority from the local municipality?
Yes, that's part of it.
But I reviewed this, although Mr. Daly said candidly that he did get these to John and I on short notice, although he did do his publication. The New Jersey State Statute 4055D 66-6 states that child care centers are an automatic permitted use in any non-residential district in any municipality. All right, so he doesn't need a use variance per se. The thing that I question, or you have to be satisfied with, is the extent of the religious studies. That could be characterized as a church, although the case law says a church or religious organizations are inherently a good and benefit the community. A variance for such a religious establishment would be required. The board has the power to waive if the applicant is making it requests to waive submissions of formal site plans or waivers or any other waivers that may apply here. I'm not sure. I know John didn't have time to really take a look at it. My understanding, though, is if the state gives their okay and does their inspection and says that the facilities can handle the number of children, that the teachers there are appropriate and are licensed or have the appropriate certificates, if they're okay with the building, they're basically saying the borough or our township, you're going to be okay with the building because we're supervising. It's our inspection. It's not your inspection that's required.
We understand that the state's authority on this supersedes the municipality's authority on this, and they will be responsible, just so everybody understands, they'll be responsible for inspecting the facility, making sure all the proper licenses are adhered to, all of the teachers are properly certified as required by the state. We're not responsible to police any of that. However, we did receive this on very short notice. Mr. Pettit has not had time to do a review letter. Mr. Rowan didn't have too much time to go through too much other than what we just talked about, relief as far as the use variance is concerned. So I think what I would like to do, unless anybody else has any objections, is have you guys come back for the second part of your application as far as your studies, your ministry. Give Mr. Pettit and Mr. Rowan some time. We generally do we have reviews that are done by the engineer. We have some reviews done by the solicitor, and then we'll try to get that. They require it 14 days prior to the hearing, which, obviously would have been at the end of March. So they have not had an opportunity to present that stuff to us for us to make, an educated decision to visit the site. I think probably some of the people sitting in front of this, are just hearing this for the first time. So in all fairness to the board, I'd like you guys to, without an objection, give the professionals time, prepare their reviews for us so we want to visit the site. If we have any questions, that we'll have some time. We want to know what you're doing. We wish you, the best of luck, don't get us wrong, but we want to know what's going in there. We want to be able to have some input on what's happening there. And we have nothing in front of us at this point in time to even have an educated conversation right now. Do you have any questions for anybody else?
I have one question.
Okay.
On your application on page 2, it says lot 5 and 501.
There's a lot behind, if you look at the building, there's a house there and then there's a parking lot.
There's 2 buildings there. One,
It's all like one connected like that building. The other lot is the parking lot behind the house. That's the other lot that they're referring to.
so I just
My question is, what's going to be on lot 5, and what's going to be on lot 501, and how are you going to marry the two, for two separate plans?
Now, I think that the building is L-shaped.
Right.
And it just so happens that the building is built on 2 lots.
Well, also, the overview that Mr. Bradley supplied to us shows that, in the way he outlined it in yellow, it looks like there's 2 buildings there.
It's one building.
One building?
No, it's on one.
There's no off-site parking?
And where's the parking?
The off-site parking, if you look at that house right there next to it, there's a lot right there. That lot's also too as well owned by them.
We can resolve this by finding out that our tax records, that they're paying for taxes on lot 5 and lot 501. If they were consolidated, I think it should be just one lot.
Okay.
This lot here, this has a house on it? This has a house on it, right?
Yes, that's a house right there. They're paying tax for both lots.
This is,
Hello, Mr. Bradley.
Mr. Bradley.
Swear in.
Sir, you want to raise your right hand?
Raise both hands.
Just curious,
The testimony you're about to give this board tonight is truthful and accurate to the best of your knowledge.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Bradley, will you explain the situation regarding the configuration of the lots?
Well, the tax map shows 2 lots.
As you're looking at the aerial photo, you can see the striped area down which is a flat horse pike. And it's a corner property, and it's an L-shaped building, and the front of it is, on the corner, there's no building on it. It's all grass, it's green, you have sidewalks coming in from both the side street and the flat horse pike.
Yeah. Addison, is this building part of this tract?
No,
But you're parking here?
no.
Oh, okay, I thought somebody said they were parking.
You have a survey?
But it's a grassy plot.
The grassy knoll?
Yeah.
There's no parking on the lot itself.
The owner,
This says no
applicant,
parking on the lot?
also owns a residential lot. It is one over
Right.
from, so if you look at the, if you look at the tax map, I gotta acclimate myself to this.
Well, if you're looking at the aerial photo, you go right next door, going down First Avenue, there's a house, and then the next is a vacant lot that is also owned by the owner of the property on the corner, and that vacant lot is used by those neighbors to park cars during the weekends and evenings.
Addison, when you guys come back, you have a survey prepared, correct? That'll solve what we from, we'll have the survey in front of us.
The plan does not provide us with a survey, that's why I used the aerial photo.
Yeah, I think we'd like to see, have a survey, you know, so we, because there's questions here that I think we just tried, a little bit muddy, so, you know. Yeah, but we'll have a survey when they come back. That'll stop it.
I've been on board many years, and usually when they subdivide lots, the lot becomes a code line to the principal number. And that's why I question it.
They may be 2 separate lots, or
Yeah.
one ownership, and the tax, the tax rolls may have never been updated. And part of the application may be that you say to the applicant, we want you to
Consolidate the lots.
I think that's
that may be a condition of the approval should this proceed. And the board grant the approval that
Tax records would indicate
none of it never goes to that, to
that.
the
They never
next step.
filed?
There are a lot of properties in various towns that are under the same ownership that remain separate parcels. When they come before the board, that's when the board says we want to clean it up, so consolidate them, make them one lot.
We get a condition of approval, that's all. If it hasn't, are they consolidated, we'll make a condition of approval that we consolidate.
Yeah, he'd have no problem consolidating the lots, I mean, there's one building on both lots.
Right.
So evidently the attorneys
What's going
built
on?
that building
The plan of Thatcher's.
Yeah, whatever, Thatcher did back then, he didn't, apparently didn't consolidate, it wasn't consolidated by the taxes a lot. You know, one building was on both lots.
So does everybody on the board understand that we really don't need to proceed with a use variance? You understand that's pretty much
For the daycare
For the
center.
daycare
We
center.
have to make a determination of
Right.
whether, for the religious stuff. Now, apparently, if it's only gonna be an hour and a half on Sunday, you may make that a condition. I mean, so they couldn't expand it into now all of a sudden it's a church. If that was their intent, I would suggest they ask for a variance for that now.
right for assembly.
Yeah, for assembly on,
Yeah, just when you come back, we don't want to give you, one piece of the pie and then find out you need two pieces of pie a year from now. We want to know exactly what your intentions are,
Okay.
for our edification purposes, and then, we can, act accordingly. So when you come back, whether it's next month or the month after, when you have your survey and you have some type of site plan, that we can all understand what it is you're trying to do, and then I think we'd be able to vote on that.
Our, as to a site plan, there's going to be no construction.
No changes to the outside of the building?
Changes to the building, so we need a site plan in addition to.
Well, when you do the survey, are you going to be doing anything as far as fencing and things of that nature for the kids?
That back area, when the state came, they said that back area is fine. We just have to make sure that it's cleaned up. So right now, we may fence in that back area, but right now, we're not looking for it.
And you're not required to.
No, no.
So there's going to be, the rooms are going to stay the same and everything else. So that's been the question from the beginning in our minds was, what are we going to put on a site plan?
I think we need a survey to know what we're starting with. And then I think one of the biggest questions is, do we need parking? If you can demonstrate that there's no need for off-street parking for Sunday services, if there's no services, it's just a daycare, and, if you're having buses drop off the kids, where is that going to occur? Is that going to be on the street?
Can we answer that now?
No, you don't have to.
Oh, okay. I mean, I can.
Be fair to
Back
you.
in front of the board, those are going to be the kind of questions that you're going to have to answer.
I got you.
Or is there a safe place that the bus can pull over, drop the kids off, that they can get to the building? Is there a walkway, and I think those are the kind of questions that the
Doing the survey.
board's going to want answered at that point. And if it gets to the point where there aren't adequate answers, then it may be that the site plan has to be submitted. That shows, if the board says, no, we need 30 parking spaces, then we're going to need a site plan. But that's going to be dependent on what the answers are.
One statement, not that, I don't know whether I've been around as long as Candy has, but
You're fine.
at the corner of Second and Black Horse Pike, there was a daycare at one time before the Polish deli came in.
Yeah,
And what the planning board did at that time was ask council to have no parking on that side of Second Street, so that
cross the cleaners.
cars could pull in, drop the children off, and there would be an area for a drop-off. It wasn't designated as a drop-off, but because it had no parking,
Mhm.
they were able to do that. And if, well, the daycare is almost an automatic as far as the state's concerned, we would ask the board whether they would consider, and you don't have to answer it this time when we come back in 2 weeks, think about it. If we could get no parking there, so that would be a drop-off spot for the kids, for the daycare.
And you're talking about on the side street, Addison?
Yeah, on the
Yeah, I know.
First,
I know exactly.
First Avenue. On First Avenue, right there around the corner, so that they could pull in off of the Black, we can get them off of Black Horse Pike, get them stopping there on First Avenue, be able to, right there by the sidewalk and drop them off. Because that's what we did with the one when it was on the corner of Second.
Are you gonna need a handicap ramp? Yes.
We did that to accommodate because the daycare was on that side of the street. That's why we made it that way. So
they could drop the people and they could go into the building without crossing the street.
This would be the same thing.
Right.
I'm just saying, I'm making a point that we did that. We did that because we had an applicant for daycare on a building across the street from you where we painted the yellow line. That's how he's doing that.
Just something you might want to, I don't know whether you're going to need something designated for handicap. You know, I don't know if you have older people that are coming to your services, but we did that for St. Mary Grace Church. Yes, sir.
And just one other thing too as well, the property where you guys are looking at from the aerial plan, in that parking lot that he actually owns, that's next to the house, that was another thing that we're using basically as far as. Yeah. Okay.
Well, you're going to show all that on the site plan, right? You'll denote that on the site plan, so when we get that a couple weeks in advance, we can go to the site and take a peek at it, and we'll know just what we're talking about.
Could there be a question from the audience, if anybody came here?
Oh, sure. When you guys are finished speaking, I'll open up the public.
Okay, because we kind of started tonight, we're about to come back next month, do I have to re-advertise?
No.
Okay.
Save the postage.
The only way you have to, Mike, is if the board made a finding that you had to do a formal site plan. In other words, if they wouldn't grant you a waiver.
Okay.
All right, then we would have to re-notify you. But no, what I would request to the board or recommend that we just continue this application until you get that supplemental information in for the members and the engineer to review, meaning the survey, sketched out where things are going to be. If you do have any approval or licensing approval from the state of New Jersey, that would be helpful too, so the board can see that they have been down there. That gives them a comfort level that the state's okay with. And as I said, the child care, that's an automatic. We have to discuss whether they would have to give you a variance on the, religious study aspect of it. Thank you very much for your time.
Before you sit down, fellas, is there anybody else from the board that has a question for the applicant or Mr. Addison or Mr. Daly? Okay, at this point in time, I'm going to open the meeting up to the public. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter and this matter only, please come to the microphone, state your name and your business. Okay, motion is made and seconded. We close the public portion of the meeting. All in favor? Okay.
And Mike, just for the record, you're waiving any right to automatic approval that might be asked.
Good night, fellas.
Thank you.
All right, next we have memorialization of resolution for the Butler Group. Mr. Rowan, did you read that?
Yes, we have this was a density variance from the requirements of zoning ordinance 395-8E4. The applicant, I submitted this earlier, unless the board wants me to read the entire resolution in the record, but this essentially made the approval of up to 100 units, townhouse type units, will be permitted, subject to a final site plan review, or a final subdivision, major subdivision review. The applicant also agreed that, as I recall, I think it's contained in here, that there's not going to be any Section 8 or low-income housing constructed at the site. Correct. That the builder or the applicant or any developer will not build units to rent. That these will be solely for resale to third parties. In other words, they can't be building units to rent themselves.
Right.
If an owner buys it and down the road they want to rent it, well, we can't.
So there could be a deed restriction on that, you were just saying at the beginning.
The deed restriction is something else. That's going to be, it's going to be deed restricted that they cannot change the garage into a living space. That's going to be deed restricted. But they're agreeing that they're not building to rent. They're building to resell. Now, what somebody down the road does, we can't control. I don't know when of course, in this, the granting of this density variance is subject to any other county, state, or any other local requirements that they have to satisfy. They also indicated in here that if need be, they did say that a second entrance to this tract, if it's required, they'll provide that. I believe that was what their representation. So we just have to move to pass the relief that was granted at the last meeting. I don't know where we are, whether they've submitted a application for
I haven't seen them.
the subdivisions.
Yeah, I mean, they had previously submitted plans at the start of this third phase of this, I don't know.
That's the third iteration, Mr. Burrell.
The what?
Full
The third
engineering
iteration
Oh,
of this property.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know if they'll ever get built. But
Right.
Right, no, no.
Is there a motion on the floor to memorialize the resolution?
I'll move that motion.
Motion by Mr. Dickinson, second by Mr. Bushin. Roll call, June?
Playhammer.
Yes.
Dickinson.
Yes.
Bushian. Yes. Wachowski.
Yes.
Thornton is absent, Dunn is absent, Davis is absent. Gladys.
Abstain.
Oh,
Yes. She didn't put you on there.
You dropped off.
That's why. He's not the put you on
off early?
Yes.
Anthony, you guys could go, because you could take for Joe.
I was a call.
She called yes. She's still writing in operative, she dropped off. She dropped the ball.
Tony?
Yes.
Over?
All right. Is there a resolution memorialized? Let's see. We have an informal for Mr. Jake Burnkeep. Oh, he's the gentleman that,
Mr. Katie, that's anxious.
okay.
Come on up.
Mr. Thady, come on up front, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good work. My name's Chuck Beatty. I'm a resident in town. And I'm looking at purchasing a property on Huntingford Road. Basically, what I'm looking to do with this property is fix it up for resale. And in doing so, I would like to propose a subdivision to build another property on the opposite side. I do have a survey for each one for everybody. There's a couple options. One option is to keep the driveway on Second Avenue. The other option is to put a new driveway on Huntingford Road.
Why don't we pick, Chuck, why don't we pass these out?
Are you on the east side or the west?
It's on the east, 125 east.
Here, I'll do it.
The first page is is option one, option two, and the last page basically gives a aerial view.
Thank you, sir.
I got two.
The square footage is there for either option. The issue, when I looked on the zoning, is that it's zoned general office, that block there. I'm not sure, it's mostly residential there, as you can see. That's the obstacle that I'm seeing.
Chuck, this is all zone general office?
Yes.
Okay, and what's this, a residence?
That's a residence house, yes.
What were you gonna do on this lot?
I was gonna build another house,
A residence? You're
a
gonna-
residence facing Second Avenue.
You need a variance. Okay? Because
Okay.
this is a commercial zone, I mean, it's a general office zone, so you would need a
Okay.
variance.
Okay.
And this is a variant, and this is an office now, or is this?
No, it's a house. It's a residence, yes.
What's next to you here?
That's the street, that's Second Avenue.
Second Avenue's here, okay.
Yes.
What's the block in
The other side is, actually, across the street is the school, Grace Downing.
Do you have a block in lot?
Yes, I do.
Is it zone general office, that would be the use variance to start before we do the subdivision?
Well, he could qualify for the subdivision that if he meets all the, area requirements and width and everything like that, but to build a house there, he would have to then get a variance.
For what part? Because it is in general office?
Yeah, for the part that, this one he's probably already grandfathered in, this resident that's on it. But for this, if he wants to put a house on the subdivided piece, if he wants to put residential on a general office zone, he's got to get a variance.
So the existing house fronts on Clemens Bridge, correct?
That's right,
Okay. So the one you're proposing is fronting on second?
yes.
All right.
And the access to driveway is from Second Avenue currently?
Right now, it's access from Second Avenue. If it
The
was.
garage faces Second Avenue?
The garage faces Second Avenue, so if it was an issue to keep that driveway where it is, the square footage as far as the frontage and the square, the area, the total area would still meet. If it was okay to put a driveway facing Clemens Road, then that's what I would do.
So option one is to put a driveway from Clemens Bridge Road to that garage and turn that garage around?
That's right.
Are these all other houses, residents?
Yes,
Yes, even along Clemens Bridge Road?
yes.
They're all residents.
What is a church, I think, two houses down?
The little church.
Little church.
Looks like a house.
Is that the church?
Mount Calvary. Mount Calvary,
Calvary,
there's some problems, yeah.
There was an old laundromat, I don't know what it's being used for now.
It's still there, it's for sale.
For sale.
Yes.
Other than that, I think it's primarily residential. It looks like a house should go there.
I mean, Clemens Bridge Road is this is the county side of Clemens Bridge Road. The other side of the state, this is county side. The driveway.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we do a curb cut, we'll have to, Mr. Rowland, what would DOT be required for approval for a curb cut on the county
Yeah,
road?
you'd probably have to, I think John would really want it, since he's on
County road.
you'd have to.
You'd have to go to the county.
You'd
Yeah.
have to go to the county.
So we couldn't okay that.
Okay.
you know. What did you say?
Well, either way, the board would have to grant the subdivision
Right.
and the use variance to allow the residential use in commercial zone. So we would have to come back, either one of these options.
And Second Avenue, the house would face Second Avenue, obviously. There's
That's
all
right.
houses on Second Avenue, the school's across the street.
Yes. Oh, there's actually some houses across the street, down the road a little bit, it's down, Grace down.
Is there a problem
Which house?
converting the garage to,
No, just putting a door switching the doors.
You'd have the driveway coming from Clemens Bridge Road?
that's what I would do, and have a clean lot off of Second Avenue.
And a big lot.
Yeah, rather than have a house with a driveway, running down it.
Or a lot
That's
of,
my personal opinion. Not from anything engineering or anything else, it's just,
yeah, I like that lot, so it is a little more square.
It's just, it's a hard turn. You see it's on an angle, you make
I
like a
mean,
90-degree
how often
turn.
is that gonna happen?
Well, we have a problem, just we just let you know, council has a request from the house next door. The county came in and put a asphalt curb the whole length after the church had a flooding problem. And the church has made a request to even raise it up higher because they're afraid they're gonna get flooded again. The neighbor next door to the church has a driveway without an apron. So she's actually hopping over the asphalt apron to get the asphalt curb to get to her driveway. So it's a little bit difficult.
It'll be a burn for a little while.
Yeah, she's actually starting to push it down by driving over.
Well, you don't know that the county would grant that acre or that driveway then? Maybe that's the first question you should ask. Talk to
They
the
take
county
a
and see
very
if they
broad
would grant
review
that.
of what they allow.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they actually raised that,
I saw it, it's, yeah, it's not even a curve, it's raised.
because we're having complaints from both, the church wants it higher, the woman next door wants it lower.
I think there's another issue then, that's using that for drainage. I mean, if they're getting water in there, I don't know if there's any.
Well, that church got
Culverts
flooded
or-
out, that the water came right
The
down.
wall collapsed inside,
Yeah.
inside the building.
But the square footage is there, and they're both decent sized lots, they both be pretty equal as far as, the total lot now is almost 16,000 square feet.
I think you might have a problem, everything looks like, everything, one course pipe drains from the east side of town down to the pipe.
Yeah, I think the entrance from Second Avenue, even though I know it's not, to keep the access. How old is the house now?
How old is the house? About 80 years old.
No.
Well, what is it exactly you're looking to get from us tonight, sir?
I basically just wanted to get a preliminary to see what the issues would be to go with the subdivision, and finding out that, first thing is a use variance, that's helpful, so I guess that's the first thing we have to do, is get a use variance because of the general office.
Well, did you do your math as far as, are you going to need any variances as far as setbacks or anything?
Yeah, I did all the calculations on it, as far as, depending on the lot that I was granted, we would try to determine the type of house layout I would use.
So,
So under the statute, what this board is guided by, you have to give proof that there's a special reason for this use business. Okay, now that burden is something you have to prove. It's not a hardship variance. It would not be a variance because of the special contour or configuration of the ground. So you would have to present testimony or convince the board there's a special reason to give you, to allow a residential use in a office zone.
Could a reason be that it's most highly unlikely that there would be an office in that area?
Yeah, I don't know, I can't tell you that.
Well, that's, I mean, I guess that's
You may
what
want
I
to
would.
consult with an attorney, and maybe they could come up with some reasons. Okay, it's not because they would prefer to see a residence on this lot, because they're guided by their ordinance that says, look, folks, this is supposed to be general office. To give relief, the applicant has to show a special reason of why it should be permitted. Now, you could argue that it's a residential type area, to designate what houses are around you, that could be considered, but you may want to get a consult with somebody.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Beatty? Did we answer all of your questions, sir?
No, that'd be good. Thanks for your time.
just one question, this board has, it's not unusual to do residential, commercial, have we done that before?
Where it was pre-existing, Nick, yeah, but this
So there was
is,
a house,
there was a house there, it might
and you
be
turned it
one.
into an office?
We had one on Black Horse Pike, remember,
Right.
people, they
They couldn't
couldn't
rent
sell it, it was a house years ago, and they had proof that nobody wanted to do, but that was an existing structure.
Existing house.
Yeah, this is a little
This is
different.
new construction.
New construction. So he would be guided by, remember one of the applications we had before, the standards under the Medici case. So the burdens are higher on an applicant to convince a board of why the relief should be granted. Doesn't mean you can't grant it, I mean, you can grant it because, well, look, there's residents all around, so it should be, yeah.
Yeah.
But he's got to offer that, you
Yeah.
can't surmise that, the applicant has to offer those proofs to convince you.
Okay. So basically go apply for the use variance. And
What I would do, I would apply for do both for the subdivision and the use variance all in one application.
will do.
Just make sure you get everything in within the proper, there's timelines
14 days.
that are on that are on the application you're gonna fill out. They actually have to be not in the hands of the secretary, they have to be in the hands of the solicitor and the board engineer 14 days prior to the hearing, so they can do a review letter for us, or you won't get put on the agenda for that month if we don't have it in time. So, if you want to get put on for, the May meeting, make sure your 14, 15 days prior to that is actually in the hands of Mr. Rowan and Mr. Pettit, and June will get one to myself if you don't want to get one to me, but we need to have those in a timely fashion.
And you might want to, instead of just getting because I don't think the board would give you a blanket, if they did entertain to give you a use variance, they're going to want to see where the intended house is, so they can see what your proposed setbacks are, side yard setbacks, rear yard setbacks. So when you have your survey, or whoever's going to do the subdivision map, the drawing, put where that house is going to build. All right, 'cause they just can't give you a blanket, oh yeah, we're going to make it a residential lot. They want to see what your, where the footprint is.
Yeah.
All right, sir?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have a nice evening.
You do the same.
Okay, we have a couple of things we'd like to go over this evening. We had some discussions a few months ago regarding two things that we asked mayor and council to consider, and they have done so. The first thing was to address the R3 residential zone. Mayor and council has had the authority from Bachman Associates take a look at that. I think everybody has a copy of the memo. Mayor and council would like to act on this. Mr. Rowland, do you have any comments on it?
No, I reviewed the proposed revision to the ordinance. I know our concern was that any amendment to the ordinance make any outside dining or drive-through dining conditional uses, not where they would be.
Right now, I'm speaking on the R3 one.
Oh, the R3, I did
Yeah.
not get that one. The only one I got was the,
Anybody else need the packet?
You have the R3 one, the R3 one?
I don't have that.
I might only send it to you.
no, I didn't get.
Well, let's do want to do the outdoor dining room?
Yeah, we'll do the outdoor dining one, and then what we can do. Well, I mean, basically, the R3 residential zone, Mr. Rowland, do you want to table this until next meeting?
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
So we'll make sure everyone gets a copy of it.
I've got the one for the fast food outdoor.
Okay.
That's what I have.
Well, we're going to table the,
Yeah, just to, if you mind, what happened was on April 3rd, I know it's probably short notice again, the Bach Associates sent over a recommendation to, I can read it quickly. The 2001 ordinance 11-2 revised and limited the list of permitted housing types in the R3 to single-family detached, single-detached, semi-detached, and townhouses, and conditionally permitted senior housing. Ordinance 11-2 rewrote the R3 zoning district standards to include a purpose, permitted principal use, conditional use, accessory uses, and bulk requirements. However, these changes did not fully resolve the problems with the R3 ordinance. The table of performance regulations for the R3 zone is intended to provide standards for development of single-family homes. Currently, there are no standards to guide the development of permitted duplex and townhouses. This ordinance will address that deficiency. So what we have for everyone, and we can obviously, the intent is to get this approved by the planning board back to council with the idea that if the current application does not move forward or other R3 zones, there are additional R3 zones, if there was any change, that this would at least set the standards that was questioned from the get-go.
If he, Nick, that's true, if he has an application, and as long as he makes application before that's adopted, he would come under the
Previous.
Yeah, the previous ordinance.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, and one reason council's even entertaining this, it may be a complete moot point, is that, as Mr. Dickens had said before, or this is the third time I think we've had an application on this property. And I think
Where's the other R3 zone other than there?
very strangely, the other R3 zone is Green Acres property for some reason, if you look at the map. And
I don't even know where that is. You know what I mean?
yes, if you look at the zoning map, there are only 2 spots.
It's in the swamp.
It's in the swamp. But once again, I think the idea here is that because of the...
Somebody's gonna come in there and want to build a boat.
No, actually, Mr. Dickinson, I think the idea for this is to simply finally add a standard that should have been done during the master plan stage. So just in case this application doesn't go through. Now, once again, this board has the ability during the site plan approval subdivision to hopefully get an application that everyone's satisfied with. But moving forward, I'll give you an example. The maximum density that's proposed on this application is 3 per gross acre, which I think at a point right now we've allowed closer to 5.
Well, our existing ordinance says 3, yeah, but not 4.
It says 3, but then it says 2,000 square feet. Once again, that's what this board needs to do. This board needs to review what Mrs. Ferry has done. So I can give this to them. And then it has design standards and stuff like that, which I don't believe are on
Basically, it empowers us a little bit more. It empowers us to, if for some reason, the Butler Group does not go forward with their existing application, if another applicant were to come in, we at least do have standards to go by, which is what we would have liked to have had in place when the Butler Group came in the last time, and they were not in place, so we basically could not act upon them. So
What
this
they
is
use is a different name.
It's a different application.
a different application. Once, Mr. Butler's application is the only one, and that's approved right now. Anything else?
Density variance.
Yeah, and that's all it is a density
He
variance.
has a permission to, he has a density variance.
Yeah.
5.5 per acre is what he has.
And so, he's not submitted an application at this point for the actual building of the townhouses. So would if we adopted this in the next 2 months, would the standards we adopt be applicable to his new application for the subdivision?
They may be.
So that could be very important, John, the standards.
We've got the use variance for the number of
You've got
townhouses.
the use- yeah. He's gonna
I
be
mean,
allowed
the
to build-
density's already set.
The
Yeah, but the
density
standards
already-
that say that the buildings must look a certain, the typical townhouse kind of.
Those are, I thought you were just talking about some bulk standards.
No, this actually addresses,
Okay.
it addresses more than that. It design standards for residential development. I mean, there's, talks about the whole 4 or 5 pages. This was modeled after, I think, Gloucester Township, like the Valley Brook type of standard, if you're familiar with that. I think that's, the idea that the houses would be somewhat differentiated.
Yeah, Nick, we're gonna have to have copies, I guess, for everybody.
Yeah, I only sent it to Candy because it wasn't on the agenda, and I don't think we.
Now, he would have to be whoever the owner is now has to be notified of that proposed change. They have to give him notice.
Well, I think there's a public hearing. I think that the heavier lift was to change the use variance. See, we're not, this is what the council, our solicitor advised us was that if we were changing the use, we would have to notify every resident, every owner in that use about the changes.
Okay.
With the design standards, I don't think, we're not changing the use. I think we're just,
Okay, all right.
I mean, that's what we were.
Bulk standards, as far as the size of the units?
Those kind of things. For example, it says, so the density we're already passed, lot size we're already passed, minimum open space says 35% of gross tract area. Minimum lot width, 20 feet, 30 feet. Minimum lot depth, 100. Minimum front yard setback, 20 feet. County road, 40 feet. Does this make sense, John, all these kinds of things? Minimum rear yard setback, 30 feet. Impervious coverage, 0.5. Maximum height, 35 feet. Maximum floor area, 1,000 square feet. Maximum building length, 120 feet. Because I don't think we even addressed.
The density was
There
3.
are SIS standards.
The density's 3 in there?
I thought 3 seemed low myself.
Well, their density was 6, wasn't it?
It was about 5.5.
5.4.
So none of this, I think, becomes applicable to them?
The density would.
Well, then it goes on to talk about, to ensure the variety among single-family residential units, houses on the same side of the street must be substantially differentiated in appearance than other dwellings. Does that make any sense, that it's talking about the way the homes are?
No, I mean, the look of the homes, that's fine, that's just an aesthetic look of how, you know, the buildings look. But the density, if you recall, in the planning, in the first hearing, talking about when you develop townhomes, density of 3, just doesn't make sense.
I thought 3 was low myself. I actually thought 3 was
That's what
extremely
it
low.
is now.
Would you impose any hardship?
It was 3 for a single family.
Single well, really?
That was spread
Just like the village.
Yeah.
Residential unit.
Well, I think with this board, so 3 seems unrealistic, so that's why I think this board, the reason the planning board is, the council is sending this is for the planning board to say 3 is unrealistic, that 4 or 5.
Yeah, because we already approved really, what do you call it, 5.5?
5.5.
Yeah, so if you want to review this and maybe we can,
Doesn't mean going forward that if Mr. Butler retracts his application, if this board wasn't thrilled with 5.5, I don't think it means that we have to make this 5.5. I mean, I think we have to hold our density approval to Mr. Butler, but I think if Mr. Butler, for some reason, were to not go forward, I think this would be a vehicle for us to get a reduction in density going forward for the next applicant.
Yeah, I mean, you could keep it
Okay.
at 3, that just means there's less buildings, and there's more open space.
I think 3 seems unrealistic myself
For
personally.
townhouses, for sure.
It is.
Yeah.
For single-family homes, it's not.
Because remember, you can't zone, you can't have the density so low that you're forcing a developer to have open space. There's a case on that in Jackson Township.
Yeah.
Says you can't do that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, just to make everything clear, to change the use of this property was much more difficult to do than to establish these standards. So when the planning board and myself included sent a letter to the council saying we'd like to change the use of townhouses in R3 zones, to do that, basically, it would be doing the master plan review again and notifying everybody, having public hearings. So I think this is,
You mean to disallow townhouses?
to disallow townhouses where you're allowing in that same ordinance, same R3 zone, you're allowing apartments. You're allowing semi-detached duplexes, you're allowing senior housing. How do you differentiate between those permitted uses and the townhouse? It's almost like you have to say R3 doesn't exist in that tract of land.
Yeah, but I think there is some merit to really everybody taking a copy, getting a copy of this sent to them.
And I'll email it to you, I apologize.
Yeah,
We can't, we have nothing.
Yeah, I sent it to the chairman, and I didn't put it on the agenda, I don't have the government.
We have no clue what
I sent it over to the chairman.
yep,
Yeah, I
You don't get it either?
I sent it to you.
okay. All right, very good.
I can
discuss what we have.
All right, so we're gonna table this until next meeting. June, could you see to everybody gets a copy of this week? Okay, and then I do think that we could go through it, and I don't think we have to go by 3, but I don't think we have to go by 5.5 either.
I agree.
You know what I'm saying? This will be our vehicle to curtail it to what we, God bless you, to what we may have rather had as a density if there were standards in place. That's kind of where we were pinned into a corner a little bit, given the fact that there were no standards. If we put standards in place, then we can act upon them. And if our standard is then 4 or 4.5, then no one can necessarily come in and say, there's no standards, I get what I want.
In retrospect, I can't figure why we never thought about age-restricted housing. It had no impact at all on the school.
Well, we
Well,
did
it does allow for
not.
that in the R3 zone. It does allow.
If it's a
But
development.
it's
has to be-
conditional use, I think, was what was. But hopefully this is the
Yeah, they
other.
weren't, the applicant wasn't interested in building deed-restricted because of the age restrictions, because they're not selling. So that was, I did bring that up.
there's so much in the county.
There was a lot of inventory. There's a
Burlington County, Bedford, Marlton, Mallard, they're going like, building like crazy.
Yeah, but there's a lot of inventory in Camden County.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. But it's like,
Right, did everyone get a copy of the memo regarding the fast food outdoor dining?
Yeah.
That's good.
Indoor, outdoor, et cetera.
Mr. Brennan, did you have time to review
Yes,
that?
I reviewed this. It looks like they, Bob did a fine job in delineating, the conditions. Well, any of these would be conditional uses, which means no matter where they might go in the borough, they have to come here.
Right.
And then they've set down forth the standards, the same thing with outdoor dining. So I didn't see anything that you really would have to modify unless John saw something. The permitted building structures and uses, once again, you can't enumerate everything. They've enumerated 15, but I'm sure we'll still get use variances periodically. But the things for restaurants and drive-throughs, I think they did a decent job. So I would recommend, if this satisfies the board, that you act on it, and by resolution, we adopt it and suggest to the borough that they adopt it and incorporate it within a revision to our master plan.
Well, John and I had some discussion about the seating, and as far as having bollards, and I'll defer to you, John.
Yeah, there's just a few items in the draft ordinance that I noticed that I had some comments on. And under section 2 of the outdoor dining, item E, it talks about outdoor dining areas adjacent to parking areas. And the way it reads, it says if adjacent to a parking area, the outdoor dining area must be delineated with decorative fencing, walls, or bollards and landscaping to be approved by the planning board. Now, this is a conditional use standard, meaning that if you don't meet this condition, you're not a permitted use. You need a use variance, which then would require 5 affirmative votes out of 7. The concern I have with this is, I don't think decorative fencing is enough. If you have outdoor seating, you want some type of safety, whether it's you have to have bollards, you have to have a wall, you have to have something to protect the diners from the parking areas.
Car going into the.
It does say, subject to the approval of the board. I don't want to get into a situation where it's always up in the air and then it's triggering a use variance. And Dave, I'll defer to you whether maybe that should be part of the design standards and not as a conditional use standard. You follow what I'm saying?
I mean,
There should be a delineation between the two, but
John, are there standards that you're familiar with for that type of
absolutely.
thing?
I've designed a lot of fast food restaurants, in Voorhees, we converted a bank building to a Dunkin' Donuts on Burnt Mill Road, and we were required to put decorative bollards around the outdoor seating area.
Right.
And it was like
As a
every 4 feet,
minimum, as a minimum on
which
that.
to me was excessive, but
But you're saying
That's
you
what
want
the
to make
board
that
said.
a
They wanted
conditional
to have-
use, you want to make that a design standard, is that what you're saying?
I think, the board should have some leeway in what, whether it's, it's a wall, it's bollards, it should be between the board and the applicant, what they want to propose.
Every application should stand on its own.
Well, how would we amend E, what would you recommend?
So John, what you're saying, not to interrupt, you're saying if an applicant comes in and we really need fencing, and they say, well, I'm providing landscaping, that's enough, is that what you're saying?
We should have some standards in the,
Well, I guess the question is, if you come before the board and you just say, I have landscaping, and the board says that's not enough, do you meet the conditional use standard?
Well, doesn't the board, they're the ones that have to be satisfied of, what's the delineation between a parking area and the fast food facility has to be, so.
I understand, but the first threshold is, do you meet the conditions of the conditional use requirements to get over that first threshold?
Or the.
Or are you dealing with a use variance?
see, now's the time to set that because then we don't have to deal with that.
So you're suggesting that it be just E? well, not yet, at E, at some other point, as a design standard? Or
Right.
as a requirement?
How do we carve that out of the
I'm wondering
conditional
if there should
use?
be, I'm sorry?
How do we carve that part out of the conditional use? Don't we want to make them come in front of us? And
Absolutely.
No, we absolutely do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. But you're saying you don't want to make the threat, you want to make it too hard for them, that it would take 5 votes, or? I'm a little lost.
No, I think everything else is very definitive, the sidewalk, the width of the sidewalk is very definitive. It's either 5 foot or it's 4 foot. You either meet that or you don't. This is kind of subjective to the board, does the board think the landscaping is enough? Does the board think that the decorative fencing is enough? That's subjective. I can't, reviewing an application, say,
Oh.
you meet this standard,
All
or
right,
you don't
you're
meet
saying-
this standard. I don't know. I don't know what the board's gonna say. Everything else is, the number of seats shall be considered in determining the parking requirements. So I can say, there's 12 outdoor seats and 30 indoor seats, and that requires 20 parking spaces, you need it. You either meet it or you don't.
I think I'm prepared to say myself, and speaking as one person, that I would in no way ever think that decorative fencing or landscaping was going to suffice between children and a car that might hit the accelerator instead of the brake. I would never think that was enough, so I would be perfectly comfortable with removing the decorative fencing and removing the landscaping as part of an approval.
So you say walls or bollards.
Walls or
But they
bollards.
could always ask for a relief on that, correct? If they felt, say there was an application where a fence, imagine that the cars couldn't pull straight in.
But if it's a conditional use requirement, meaning that if you don't meet this condition, which says you have to have a wall or bollard
Yeah,
separate,
there it is.
and then you come before the board, you say, I don't want to do that, I want to put landscaping in. You don't meet that condition of the conditional use, you need a use variance.
Okay, so we force them to get a use.
That gives us
I
more-
say
more
that
control.
should be a conditional use, standard.
What about like the Chicago's, that outside,
Hang on, guys, let me, I'm sorry, Mr.
remember when
Ockley.
Chicago's had the outside bar?
Yes. Yes.
Did they meet that much around that?
That was a raised deck, as I recall,
Yeah, I mean,
and I don't remember whether they had them or not.
But they wouldn't meet the conditional use, but then they would ask for relief from that. And that's-
In the case of a variance.
Yeah,
I would be perfectly, I'm much more comfortable, taking out the option for landscaping and decorative fencing. That gives us more control over hoping that everyone's gonna be safe, that's the most important thing. And we also talked about, I had occasion to go past a new Dunkin' Donuts on Kings Highway in Miffleton, and they just added a drive-in probably 6 months or so ago, and it's designed in a way that the cars are backed out into the street because there's a line there. So
That's the next one.
that's the next one that we're gonna speak about. I just wanted to gateway into what we were talking about.
Okay, so is that, so
Well,
cross out?
maybe it could be walls, bollards, or structural impediments, some kind
Okay.
of other language, just to,
Just get rid of the
give the board
decorative
some kind of
fencing, get
leeway.
rid of the landscaping.
What are you familiar with as far as standards for that kind of thing? Does it say walls or bollards normally, in your experience?
Yes, we've done some landscape walls, that are anchored into the concrete.
You're talking about masonry?
Yeah, masonry walls, we've done bollards. Bollards are the easiest ways to do it. Some towns have let us get away with just, rails, depending on the traffic patterns. If there's no parking right up against the parking or the dining, if you're just driving around it, then, the chances of somebody driving along, turning into the dining area, that's what you evaluate,
Those bollards stay pretty nice too, because it have the ones with
They covered them.
the sleeves.
Yeah, you can put the
that
plastic
hold the bits.
coating on them. Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, there's even decorative ones now.
Yeah. Color them any color you want, pretty much.
So is it,
So structural impediments, I do like that idea, because you're right, if it was an elevated dining area, it may not, it might be, give
Right,
some
and
leeway
that
to the
gives the
board.
board some leeway to say,
Yeah.
yeah, in our opinion, you meet that condition.
Okay.
Especially with the lack of parking in this town.
John, can you go into this email and
Yes,
revise
well,
that?
she made the presentation, she just said.
Yeah,
sorry?
or I can shoot an email to Leah.
All right, yeah, why don't you do that, yeah.
is everyone comfortable before we move forward? I don't want to be the one saying what we're doing, I'm just making a suggestion.
Actually, Mr. Dixon had a question, I want to make sure of
Yeah.
clarification. This board is looking at it before council's looking at it.
Okay.
So actually, that's what I'm saying, this stuff was just forwarded right to this board, and then your recommendations will go to council.
So is everyone here comfortable with the language we just talked about? Removing the decorative fencing and the landscaping?
Walls.
I think we're gonna say delineated with walls, bollards, or structural impediment to be approved by the planning board.
Okay, I'll make that.
That works for me.
Anyone disagree with that? Okay,
Without
so,
objection.
okay, so we'll make that change.
Stop the car.
It's a real big tree.
And Mr. Bennett, you want to expand on the second point?
The next one is for the drive-through facilities. I got two comments on that, letters F and G. F has to do with the menu boards. My office has designed a lot of Dunkin' Donuts and Taco Bell establishments throughout the years. It says that the sign shall not exceed 6 feet in height and 20 square feet in area. I'm going to hand out some sample menu boards. This is what we submit for approvals all the time.
20 squares out of
About 20 not big enough, or? Oh, no.
I mean, you can leave it at that. It's a question of,
But it's not too,
and I don't know how many fast food restaurants are coming into town, but if you were to have a Taco Bell or a Dunkin' Donuts come into town, this is what you're gonna get. You're gonna get a 42 square foot Dunkin' Donuts menu board or a 45 square foot Taco Bell menu board.
Oh, it is?
Yeah,
20 square feet does sound small now that you're saying.
Yeah.
I like this
So, you know,
one.
you want an ordinance.
The menu board is mentioned here, but it's not.
He's talking about up here,
So what would be amended to, what is your recommendation?
next page.
8 feet high, 25 square feet?
Well, these are 7'2" and 7'3", so 7'6" and 45 square feet.
That seems like a plan.
785.
I think the height was the most important, correct? I mean,
Or you could say 7 foot high.
Now, one of them, what's high?
no, they're both over 7 feet.
Right, these are, the Dunkin' Donuts with these dimensions is 7'2".
Pictures.
62 inches.
And the Taco Bell is 7'3".
And around, usually it's the curb, the drive area is, so what's the standard curb?
Thank you.
I don't care about the.
You made a reason the second page, I mean, the last page, you speak.
Well, you can leave it at 6 foot and 40 square feet.
I think, I mean, my personal opinion, I understand what you're saying, you know, this is more typical. You know, the menu board has to fit in that area, so it's gonna fit in 7'6" and 45 square feet seems very reasonable. You showed us two
As a
examples.
sign.
As a sign guy.
As a sign guy.
You know, I told you I reviewed it, but I didn't see those kinds of things. And what was wrong with G?
I'm sorry, not G specifically. There's not a letter for the last item. To me, the biggest concern when you're dealing with fast food restaurants with drive-through facilities is the queuing in the drive-through lane. You want to make sure there's sufficient length in the drive-through that you have enough stacking for the cars. Again, we designed for Dunkin' Donuts, they want 5 cars between the window and the menu board, hopefully another 5 behind that. If you go to Dunkin' Donuts on any given day, you know, you can have cars stacked out to the roadway, and that's not good. So that's something you want to look at when you're evaluating the site that's big enough. So I think what you want to have in here is that, you know, the facility should be able to accommodate a minimum number of cars in a queue with the stacking lane. We did find Cherry Hill as a standard, sufficient space. They say four spaces for the drive-through window or station. I don't think 4 is enough.
No.
You know, Taco Bell, their minimum standard for all their sites is 8.
Okay.
I would say at least 6.
I like 8.
I don't even know if 6 is.
So you can always give a waiver, right? If you ask for 8. we
Yeah,
just
you know,
say-
because I'm thinking of some of
Eight is a good
the,
number, you know, you could always give
You
them
always
a waiver.
reduce it, give them a relief.
Oh, you gotta give me the language to write it down, so I can.
Well, I can put an email.
You wanna do it together?
To you.
Oh, would this board like to, pass a resolution recommending this back to council for council action, or do you wanna wait another month?
I think what we ought to do, Dick, if this board wants revision, that's our John's suggestion, we ought to contact Bach, who is it, Leah? Yeah, have her revise it,
Okay.
put it back on for next, I would open up to the public tonight, if the public has any comment, then once it's been revised, let the board review it again, and then at the next meeting, do a resolution.
No hurry.
Okay.
yeah, I'd like to see the revised copy.
Yeah,
Okay, so you'll make the recommendations, get a sent back.
right, that way there can be, well, wait, this is what we'll.
I know, we don't wanna make another mistake.
Yeah.
Now, does everyone here agree to the number of 8 for the queuing? Is that
I think
satisfactory?
that's very comparable. I think it's very
Mr. Beatrice, is that good for you?
Yeah, fine.
Mr. Over?
We always want to adjust it, we can do that.
Yeah, we can do it, yeah.
Okay, so you'll make a note?
So how's that measured, John? If you say 8 vehicles, how's that measured?
You show a vehicle at the drive-through window, and then you just show the vehicles behind it,
I mean, you know,
out to the beginning of the drive-through lane.
okay. So you say 8 vehicles, then that's, how does that translate
Like
into?
a mid-sized car, you can do it on a mid-sized car?
60 feet, roughly. You figure 20 feet for a car. 18 feet, 20 feet, you know, give a little space.
So we were 160 feet from the window.
To the street? Yeah.
Nobody's.
Yeah, I like that.
Nobody's in the street.
The beginning of the lane.
Well, we're not gonna.
We don't want them out in the middle of the.
We're not going, right.
Oh, you're saying from the other end?
In other
Beginning of
words,
the drive-through lane.
Right,
Yeah.
What you voted on was this.
So they're all in queue, they're not in the middle.
before you get to like a,
Because people will sit there in that queue.
Yeah.
They'll sit out in the middle of the street? Okay.
Does anybody else have any other questions on the rest of the memo from Leah? Okay, at this point, in time, I'd like to open the meeting up to the public. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter, and this matter only, come on up and state your name and be heard. In June. She'll be here.
I see no one to make a motion to close that?
Okay, we're going to close the public portion of the meeting. All in favor?
second.
Okay.
I do have one more.
This one was up there yet. Yeah, Mr. Richard Fathers.
Two other things, just to make everyone aware, the sign ordinance, a draft will be sent in the next week for that. So I want to make everyone aware to be looking for this. I'll make sure June gets it, everyone gets it. There will be a rough draft that will come first to the planning board. Sign, a revision to the existing sign ordinance. That was the third thing that we had given the engineer to go over. And then the council did receive a letter from the planning board about revising the fence ordinance. And I know there's a few issues about the fence ordinance, but the main one that I think the council's more likely going to change is the council feels that the fence ordinance is adequate in the way it's written now, except for one line where it references the construction code official as opposed to the zoning official to determine an approval for a fence. So more than likely, that would be the only thing. I know there was a concern from this board about what the front yard line is. We don't feel that that's actually a big problem. The issue that this board, the council has been dealing with is the determination of what a front yard is, not the front yard line. And the ordinances, we feel very clear that it says a corner property has 2 front yards. So, and that runs concurrently in many other parts of the ordinance. Is that correct, Mr.? It does say that the corner property has 2 front yards in other parts of the ordinance. And in the fence ordinance, it also says that. So I think the only thing that the council may change is that it says construction code official, so that'll be amended to say the zoning official. Unless you guys have a comment about that, because, you know, we haven't drafted anything to change this at this point. Was there any concerns that this board had about the idea of the front yard line? See, the front yard line was the building line. Now, if you felt that we need to clarify that and say building line, if that's your recommendation, because the idea of where the house is, I think that was the intent.
Yeah, setback line?
Not the setback line. See, that's the confusion.
Yeah, the building, yeah, right, you're right, Nick, it's not the setback, it's the building.
It's the building line. So if the idea, if what this board is saying is they would like the front yard line to be said the front yard building line, I think council would have no problem, because I think that was the determination. Because think about houses that go in and out. You know, the fence is not determined by the setback. It's decided by, you know, if your right side of the house is closer to the street, your fence should be able to go to the front of your house. If the left side of your house.
Remember that if we have a building that was put years ago, and that's 3 feet from the curb or 5 feet from a sidewalk, then that would be the building line. You could put a 6-foot fence up to that.
However, if the ordinance also, if it's on a corner property, it would not be allowed. So it wouldn't make the second standard. And then the ordinance does also say that you cannot have a solid fence on a front yard. So once again, the other standards, I think, get you. I hear what you're saying. I agree with you 100%. And I think this board has the ability, if people come in, and I think there are legitimate reasons for people to have solid fences on certain corner properties that don't impede their neighbors. But the problem that we saw with this is, how could this fence be allowed on one person's property, and the person right next door would not be allowed to put that same fence up? You know what I mean, that common line? So on the one house, they would be denied, but on the other house, it would be approved. It makes no sense. So, if everyone wants, if that's what the recommendation, if you want us to change that to building line and zoning official, I think we can get that changed. That wouldn't come back to the planning board, that would just go with an amendment.
Yeah, I think their big was that they didn't want the solid 6-foot fences, Nick, going down to the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And I think that's, we did have one.
And we said we wanted
where
to
it
have,
did
we
do
wanted
it.
to have about 2 foot off the sidewalk period, didn't we?
Well, the ordinance also actually addresses that.
I think the ordinance does say that. You
Yeah,
can't-
we don't want the fence going up the
Yeah, the ordinance
sidewalk.
does actually address it. It can't be-
Whatever, the municipal land use law puts out the book, and in that book is almost a definition for everything.
Yes,
So if there's a building line versus a setback line,
yes.
let's find out which one that they would recommend.
Yeah, you know, you're right, and there is a definition. And so I think building line helps clarify it, and that'll be it. The front yard line meant it wasn't allowing the construction code official to determine what a front yard was. That's where I think the miscommunication came, that it wasn't allowing, he can't say that that's a front yard and that is not. We agree there has to be standards and definitions. So in that definition that you're talking about, a corner property by definition has 2 front yards. So that's where that trumped this other one. So we'll fix it.
Mr. Knight, did you have anything? I mean, you're
Mr. Knight's aware of this.
You're gonna be the gentleman that's gonna have to enforce it. Did you have anything to add, or are you satisfied with it?
It may be good to add the building line in there,
Okay.
just to further define it.
Yeah.
Everyone else satisfied with that, or any changes or additions or subtractions?
It gives the man the meat that he needs.
Okay, so we'll move forward with that. Mr. Vados, no action needed by the board, right? You're just going to...
For the fence issue, no action. The sign will come to you guys
Right.
first.
Yep.
And then for the R3 zone, that'll
Next
give you guys an opportunity to
In
review.
June, that should be put on the, if that's going to come next month or whatever, those reviews of the proposed changes should be put on the agenda. Okay, so we're going to do that by statute.
Yeah, this is the public hearing.
Yeah, this is the public hearing.
Yes.
Do you have any old business? Do we have any other communications, Jude? Okay. Vados, do you think that we could find someone to fill in for June? She will not be here for the June meeting. Did you see
I
it?
don't think you're gonna need to do that. I will come back in and set it up, and then when it's done, Joyce can probably do it the next day. To get back it up.
I mean, I'm okay, if the board feels that they want to have a secretary for the zoning board here, I think we can make arrangements. I appreciate you trying to set it up, but I think if the board wants to, I personally would rather have someone here.
Yeah, I think we need somebody here.
You know, I don't want, you
Well,
know.
we never had
Yeah, I think you need
a
to,
sub, so.
Yeah, I'll find
an
something.
operator,
We'll find something. We have to,
if somebody wants,
I think it's another, you know, another municipality.
Mr. Pettit.
Yeah. Mr. Pettit can run that machine.
I think,
For the
so you're
purpose-
saying the June meeting, you will not be here?
Right.
June will not be here in June?
Yeah, it's for the purpose of roll call, for the purpose of order, I want somebody here.
Yes, we'll get somebody here.
If possible.
next month?
No, we'll get somebody.
Thank you, engineers.
Okay, good and welfare. At this point in time, let's open the meeting up to anyone wishing to speak on any matter at all. Please come forward, state your name and be heard.
seeing no, move that we close the public portion of the meeting.
All right, motion made and seconded that we close the public portion of the meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Motion by Ms. Goosen, second by Mr. Dickinson. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 8:30.